My sister got into one of the worst pickles ever. I tried to be there for her, but she just kept backstabbing me over and over. The cutting straw was when she decided to slash my car tires, and guys, I did everything for her, and this is how she repays me. My junior sister recently got a job as a data analyst at an IT firm, and anyone who knew where we were coming from would actually consider it a breakthrough for the both of us. Our mother, who was the only surviving person, we had passed away right after I graduated from college, and I've looked out for my junior sister ever since. As you can bet, it's not really been easy. I'd settled with doing menial jobs to support the both of us, though I'd studied estate management as a course in college. Somewhere along the line, I got tired of waiting for real estate firms to get me employed. I had my certificate. I was a licensed real estate agent. So I decided to start practicing as an individual. As time went on, I started getting few jobs here and few jobs there, and it helped alleviate the burden a bit. Though my sister and I were not really far above the average line. My junior sister got out of college, and I finally could breathe a sigh of relief, because it meant that she would finally start taking care of herself. She did her best to look for a job, as I had done, but her efforts never really paid off. She decided to get attached to one of her friends who was into wedding event planning. Personally, I believe that my sister's field is because not only did she have the passion for it, she was someone who was proactive. She naturally planned ahead, and so I had no doubts that she was going to do well. The goal was to acquire knowledge on how the whole thing was done before she'd finally launch one of her own. However, she soon got a call from one of the firms where she had initially submitted her application, and she was called upon to resume work. She wasn't really willing to take on the job offer. She actually wanted to stick with the event, planning and all that, but I'd advise her to go for the job. She could at some point do the event planning by the side, but we currently needed the job because it paid great. Offered financial security as she was assured of a pay by the end of every month. Unlike event planning that only came from once in a while, thankfully my junior sister took my advice. Well, she had because there was lots of bills that needed to be cleared. We lived together in a 2-room apartment, though we would have moved out once things got better. My sister would be resuming work by next week as a data analyst in the prestigious IT firm, and I will say good luck for her. What's up everybody, Mr. Reddito here. I hope you're enjoying your day. So this story is definitely about to heat up. In total, there's 5 updates, and OPS posted them right after one another, and you're not going to believe what happens next. First update is 6 months after the original post. Here it is. It's been 6 months since my younger sister Thelma began working at her newfound job, but things have not really turned out the way we thought it would. As a matter of fact, my sister's currently engaged in a legal battle with her boss. I know it's rather unbelievable, but it's true. 2 weeks after she resumed working at her prestigious firm, she came home complaining about being uncomfortable with the way her boss passed glances at her. I dispelled her suspicion as just being an irrational one. I mean, it was just too early to start noticing problems like that. As the weeks went by, her complaints became to me more and more, and I couldn't ignore them. I was at home one Wednesday when my junior sister walked into the room without taking notice of my presence. I knew something was probably wrong, and when I inquired, she broke down in tears. I became scared at that point and pressed further on what the issue was, but all she did was throw an envelope at me. I quickly tore open the envelope to discover that it was her sack letter. What could my sister have done to get fired so soon? Before I could ask what happened, she began recounting to me how her boss had asked her to the office a week prior, on the pretext of wanting to brief her on something, only to end up making direct advances at her. She softly tried turning him down, but he pressed on, with the promise that if my younger sister let him have his way, just as others did before, he would make her life very comfortable just as he'd done before. It was then that it dawned on my sister that she was not the first person that he tried sleeping with. She knew that with this was coming at her with a passion appeal, at that time he would not stop in his tracks, so she rebuked him and walked out. She never thought much about it because everything seemed to revert back to normal with her boss acting like nothing ever happened, only to get to work that morning and be presented with a sack letter. Now, the sack letter's not really the problem, no. Any staff who was underperforming should be fired. At least I know I would fire a staff who had becoming a liability to my company. But the issue was that my younger sister Thelma has not underperformed or behaved in such a manner that would warrant her being laid off. Her boss simply stated that reason as not being punctual to work. I could count how many times my sister went late to work, and there were very few. It was clear that he had been nursing the anger of being turned down by my younger sister. The truth of the matter is that this was a pattern which everybody in the office was aware of. It was his custom to sleep with his employers. And when he was not getting what he wanted, he would come up with one outrageous excuse why such an individual should be fired. If it was not for coming late to work, then it would be the fact that the company was going through trying times and just needs to lay someone off. It's funny because only the staff who had not given to his demands were ever laid off. After listening to my sister, I decided that we were not going to sit back and watch him get away with it like others did. I did not mind using the whole of my savings to seek justice for my sister. I was not just her sister, I was her mother. I was her family. We would be going to court next week. Alright guys, I was not lying. Mr. Reddito here. I told you this story was cooking up. Just wait until you see what happens in Update 2. Update number 2 came out exactly 2 months since the last update. Let's go ahead and jump into this update. I hope you guys are having a fantastic day. Here it is. Well, it's been 2 months since my last update, and my sister's currently canvassing about for a job as an event planner right after the legal battle with her previous employer whom we got dragged to court. The case seemed to linger, as it was virtually my younger sister's word against her boss. The employees, who were all called to witness the stand, said nothing concrete to nail him, even though they all knew the truth. I guess they were just trying to protect their own careers. My sister's boss almost got away with it until her lawyer asked the company's record that he brought up all the employees fired within the past 5 years be called as witnesses to the case. It was clear that her boss and his lawyer was not comfortable with that request because they knew it would turn out against them. But the judge granted it anyways. And yeah, upon investigation, it turned out that the whole past employees laid off by the company in the past 5 years were all ladies. They were brought in as witnesses, and they all testified to having been sexually harassed in the past by their employer. That was all the judge needed to nail my sister's boss. He was sentenced to prison, 8 years in the slammer, and my younger sister was settled off with $100,000 for wrongful termination of a job, while the other witnesses each got compensation of $50,000. The company soon folded afterwards, and my sister refused to go seek for a job elsewhere. She wasn't willing to subject herself to another boss. She rather chooses her own boss, and that was how she delved into this planning of events, which she had always been passionate about anyways. Though yet, she's not got a gig yet. My sister came home last week to find my friend Ashley and I discussing about the recent engagement which she just had. That was perfect opportunity for my younger sister to market her trade, and she took good advantage of it. She began talking to my friend about her passion, and she had always been about planning weddings and big events. She soon suggested that my friend let her plan her wedding, which has to come up in a year's time. I knew it was a bad idea because Ashley had in mind to have the wedding of the century. And though I love my sister to bits, the truth remains that she was not the right one to organize the wedding of the century. I indirectly tried discouraging her from taking the gig, but my younger sister was not willing to let it pass on the opportunity to land her first gig. I knew that if she messed it up, that she could get her life messed up by Ashley. Ashley was the daughter of a top military official, and you know what that means. My friend Ashley was all too excited to have my sister plan her wedding because she was friends with me. She never bothered asking if my younger sister had handled any gig in her life, let alone one of this size. All that mattered to her was that her wedding was going to be planned by her sister of her very good friend. I kept quiet as they were talking about what Ashley wanted for the wedding and all. Once Ashley left the house, I immediately asked my younger sister to give up the whole thing. But she took it to mean that I was not seeking after her good. I felt like slapping some sense into her. She was a licensed data analyst and not a wedding planner. I tried making her see that the passion wasn't enough. She equally needed experience to plan a wedding of such magnitude. An experience when she lacked. But my sister would not just listen. I had to let the whole matter be, even though I knew that I owed my friend the duty of telling her the truth that my sister would likely mess up her wedding. What would you do if you were in my position? Would you ruin your younger sister's first gig at what she really loves? Please guys, help me out in the comment section. Update number 3, 7 months later. It's been 7 months since my last update, and that is because I've just been watching things on the side. I recently had a fight with my friend Ashley, and just as I predicted, it was all because of my younger sister's unwillingness to take sound advice when it's being offered. Ashley came over to my house last week to complain about my sister being too slow with the whole process. She claimed that she was yet to get a viable feedback from my sister as to progress so far. Both the wedding venue, wedding dress, refreshments, and all were yet to be sorted out. And her fiancé was beginning to question the fact that she had the whole thing under control or not. I listened to Ashley speak, and I just knew that my little sister had done it again. I knew that Ashley was probably not that far from the truth, but I couldn't just start taking sides with her. So I simply asked that she gave me time to confirm from my sister all that she had said. But then Ashley became erratic. She claimed that I knew all along that my good-for-nothing sister was incapable of handling her wedding, but I still gave her the go-ahead to work with her. Now, Ashley was right in the sense that I did suspect my sister of being incapable of delivering the work, and I didn't speak out. I don't deny that fact, but I was not going to stay there and watch Ashley throw insults at my sister. We had a heated argument until I finally decided to be the responsible one and apologize for my sister's slow pace. I promised Ashley that I would speak with my sister and ask her to speed up the whole process. Ashley thankfully left my house that day with our relationship intact. My younger sister returned home to find me waiting on her. I initially did not tell her that Ashley had visited me earlier. I simply asked her about the progress of the wedding of the century, which she was supposedly planning. She began trash-talking about still trying to make plans or get in touch with so-and-so. It clearly dawned on me that she had not made such a progress so far. This was 3 months to the wedding at this point, and someone who knew what she was doing ought to be rounding things up and not making plans to kickstart them. At this point in time, I began pleading with her to just seek the help of an expert who can maximize the 3 months left to produce something that could at least meet my friend's requirements. But my strong-headed sister began trying to blackmail me emotionally by saying that I've never had faith in her at all. Here was someone who I'd been a mother to, telling me that I lacked faith in her. I knew she knew that her words were untrue. If I did not have faith in her, then I would never have had any backing since our mother died. On the other way round, she was the one who needed to have faith in me more often. Since we were orphaned, I could remember the time she took heed to my advice, and there were few most of the times. She went on her own way and paid the price, of course. After she was done bickering, it was crystal clear to her that her emotional blackmail did not work on me, as I told her explicitly that she could not meet up and there was no point to trying to prove a point. But she insisted that she had everything under control. I was scared because I knew it was just a lie, but there was nothing I could do to make her see reason with me. I offered to assist her, but she turned me down by saying that she was not a baby and I was only offering to help because I deemed her incapable. I finally told her about Ashley's visit early on, and her complaints too, but my younger sister tried downplaying the whole thing. She promised to reach out to Ashley to brief with her on the progress of everything so far. I let the whole thing be. You can't help someone who doesn't want to be helped. Update number 4. It's a month to my friend Ashley's wedding. Here we go. Hey guys, it's about a month to go to the wedding, and I'm about to mess things up big time for my younger sister. And that's because she deserves it. After my altercation with Ashley a few months ago because of my sister, I made up my mind to discourage her from working with my sister if I discovered any further hint of insincerity on my sister's part. And I wasn't kidding. I actually called her to find out if my sister had gotten in touch with her to brief her on the progress of everything, and she responded in the positive. I was satisfied with Ashley's response, so I went about my business. But a few days later, my sister approached with me to help her facilitate a deal that was in my field. She wanted investing in the renovation of an apartment complex, which she'd been seeing advertised on social media. I had presented my sister with various investment opportunities in real estate when she recently won the case against her former boss and was awarded $100,000. But my sister turned them all down. She was not interested at all, so I wondered how the interest would suddenly come, and she would bypass me to go on social media of all places. Now, I believe social media is a very good market tool for business, but it is equally a platform where scammers can thrive. I was skeptical about the whole thing, but this was the first time my sister would be asking me for this kind of help, and it would not be fair to hear her out since it is what I do for a living. I finally decided that I was going to look up the whole thing and get in touch with the individuals involved. It was the least I could do for my sister. I finally met with the people and visited the site where the renovation was to take place, but I wasn't really pleased with my findings. The building was not situated at a place where folks were likely going to want to live anytime soon. It was just close to the road and all, and I had to tell my sister to pull the plug, as it would be difficult to make a profit from such a venture because the apartment would need to be renovated and rented out because she would actually make profit. And this would take a really long time. Most people would avoid such a building situated there. My sister remained adamant, her trademark. She claimed that the folks promised 100% profit in just 2 weeks. 2 weeks? In all the years which I've spent as a real estate agent, I've never seen a deal that offered 100% return in much less than 2 weeks. This was a giant red flag to me, and I called my younger sister's attention to it, but she asked me to follow through with the whole procedure. She said that she was not going to hold me accountable for any loss that may occur. Well, I decided to follow through with it as she said, but my greatest shock came when she informed me of the amount that she wanted invested. $200,000. I almost jumped out of my skin. Where did my sister lay her hands on such amount of money? And why did she lack enough business sense to know that it was risky to invest the whole thing? All the same, she was calling the shot, so I followed through with the whole process. I was doing my best to focus on my job as a self-employed agent while still keeping in touch with the folks doing the renovation. But 5 weeks ago, I received a shocker. I visit the site to discover that it's been abandoned for a while. As a matter of fact, the building was even demolished. I knew clearly what we were going for, renovations and not demolitions. It made no sense, and so I tried reaching out to the folks who I thought we were doing business with. But it turned out that their lines were switched off, and I had no time to inform my younger of the recent development. I had to quickly get the police involved, as it dawned on me that we have just been scammed. I got home that day to break the news to my sister, and she nearly died. She could not come to terms that she's been duped of $200,000. I informed her that I had involved the police in the matter, and hopefully they would get back to us with some positive news. No positive news came from the police, though. The only thing which they could tell us was the fact that the building had been illegally erected for the purpose of scamming unsuspected individuals. They, however, promised to continue doing their best to find the culprits, but I and my sister knew that statement was an indirect way of saying that they have done all they could. The few days that followed saw my sister beat herself up. Personally, I would say that she ran mad, in a sense. She accosted me one morning on my way to work and began blaming me for the misfortune that befell on her. She said that I was supposed to guide her on the right path to follow, but I led her astray. I ignored her as I knew that she was probably hurting from the loss and simply needed to pour her frustration elsewhere. Her rash attitude continued for the next few days, and I still ignored her till she told me this morning that I was going to replace that money. I reminded her of the promise that she made me agree upon, and, well, while trying to coerce me into working with these folks, she had promised to not hold me accountable should something go wrong. We had a serious argument that morning that, well, when I discovered the $200,000 was the money that was meant for Ashley's wedding plan. Yeah. After she disclosed that the money was meant for my friend's wedding, she began pleading I borrowed her the money. I never had $200,000 anywhere, and even if I did, I wasn't going to give it to her to settle her debt. I told her that I could not help her, and her mood suddenly changed to one of a mad woman who felt entitled. I ignored her and drove off to meet a client whom I needed to close a deal with, but not before telling my sister to go and deal with her issues and do not get me involved. I tried focusing on the discussion which my client and I were having, and everything was going smooth, until my younger sister showed up at the coffee shop. She began creating a scene right then and there, telling my clients that I would end up scamming them just as I've scammed her. My clients ignored her until they learned that she was my younger sister. What would you do if you were their shoes? They quickly changed their mind about working with someone whose sister called a fraud. They quickly left, and my sister and I drove off. I did my best to restrain from fighting her, but I made the leave to the building as people were beginning to gather around. I headed straight for my car, but my sister quickly took a cutlery and sliced my tires just to avoid me driving off. I was mad, but I still applied restraint. I called a taxi, but I'm not heading home. I'm heading for my friend Ashley's place, where I plan on exposing my sister to her. I'll update you in. Hey everybody, Mr. Reddito here, and man, this was a crazy story. There's one final update, and it comes out 2 months later. Guys, this is a crazy one. Sit back with your favorite beverage, smash that subscribe button, and let's jump into this final update, shall we? It's been 2 months since my last update, and that's been because I've been too busy running to the rescue of my younger sister that I had to deal with. Yeah. Well, technically speaking, she dealt with herself. After our fight, or rather, after she had publicly embarrassed me, I headed for Ashley's family home where I met with her fiancé and her parents happily having lunch, and I could see the excitement in Ashley and her lover's face, and I could tell that they could not wait any more to be married to each other, and the most exquisite wedding of the century, eh? Well, I was soon going to burst their little bubble. They were all surprised to find me. The looks on their face told me that the presence was not the issue, it was my appearance. I was looking tattered all to pieces thanks to my younger sister. My hair, it was disheveled, and I did not even notice, to be honest. I was too angry to take note. The only thing on my mind was getting back at my sister for ruining my deal and publicly getting me embarrassed. Before they could ask me what my purpose was for barging into their happy time, I began talking. I sang like a canary. I apologized to Ashley that I never came clean to her about my sister. I told her that I was kept in the dark just like her. I recounted to her my sister's ordeal, how she had been duped of the money which she was supposed to use in planning for the wedding of the century. Ashley, well, she was mad. She could barely wait for me to finish what I was saying before pouncing on me as though I was the cause of the whole thing. Thankfully, her folks were more rational than she was. They intervened, and I was lucky to escape from Ashley's grasp unhurt. I've never seen Ashley in beast mode, not even when we had our argument at my house. I was given some more room to speak and told them that I was in no way of support of my sister did, and I would not stand in the way of any actions which they decided to take against her. Ashley's father rallied men of force in minutes, and they drove down to my house with me. My younger sister, Thelma, was anticipating my return at home, so she could resume her harassment, but she got the surprise of her life, buddy. The military folks really created a scene like we were coming to arrest a criminal. Well, my younger sister was a criminal, because if the case was taken to court, it would be treated as a case of fraud, where my sister would be charged with defrauding Ashley. Though I was angry with my sister, I somehow felt bad watching her being dragged away into the van. My anger quickly turned to pity as she began crying out for help, begging me not to let them take her away. The sense of responsibility over her just came over me. I guess no matter how hurt or angry I was with my sister, I could never shake off the fact that she was the only family which I had. I had no mother, I had no father, I had no brother. I didn't even have a man in my life. I decided to plead on her behalf. It's quite funny because I was the one who had given her up in the first place. I went back to Ashley's place 3 days later to plead with her to show my sister mercy for the sake of our friendship. Ashley, who was still angry and busy trying to make a last-minute preparation for the wedding, disclosed to me that she'd given my sister $350,000 for the whole thing. But the only thing which my sister could get done was just the wedding dress. And that was after she's approached me months back to complain about my sister being slow. The more I listened to Ashley, the more I sympathized with her. To be honest, I don't think that it's fair for any bride-to-be to pass through at the hands of anyone. If it were me, I would deal with that individual in the worst way possible. All the same, though, I pleaded on my sister's behalf. Ashley said she was going to consider my request after her wedding, which still was going to be in a month's time, and my sister was to fully repay the money which she was given. Ashley went on to have her wedding, and it was not the wedding of the century. It was just a simple ceremony. They were keen on still holding the wedding at the exact date because so many guests had been invited. I could not attend the wedding. I mean, how could I be the bridesmaid of a bride who had the sister locked up? It was going to look absurd, and I knew that. I rather spent time trying to raise money to bail my sister and all. I cleared up my account and even sold my car. The very ones whose tire that she'd slashed. After all said and done, I could not realize the complete money. I could only raise about $150,000. I pleaded with Ashley afterwards, and she said that she was only going to let my sister out of jail on the condition that my sister signed an undertaking to fully pay the remaining $200,000 within 2 months of her release. I agreed to the terms quickly on behalf of my sister, and Ashley had her released. I went to pick up my sister from jail the day she was released, and she looked like someone who had truly been in jail. There was no doubt that she'd learned her lesson. It showed across her body. I refused speaking to her about the whole incident for the next 2 days. I'd wanted to see if she had enough sense to admit her fault and all, but she was still stubborn and dumb as ever. Well, I finally called her on the second day and informed her that I've done the last thing which I will ever do for her as a sister, mother, or friend, and that was soliciting her release, helping to pay part of the bill. I told her to leave my house and go find a place of her own. She's currently on her own working as a sales rep in an automobile company. It does not look like she would be able to raise $200,000 in 2 months' time. Well, I guess that's her business now. She has to look for a means to meet up otherwise. She would simply find herself in jail again. Or there would be nobody to come to her aid this time, as she currently has lost all of her friends. So, I'm going to go ahead and maybe say an unpopular opinion, but I think the reason why this story escalated so fast and at the end it was just a disaster is because OP did not tell her friend Ashley, hey, listen, my sister just began doing this. This is probably not the route you want to go. I strongly advise against it. I think that would have set OP up for great success later on without her friend being mad. I mean, yeah, her sister might have been upset at first, but Ashley didn't even have to tell the sister who tipped her off. She could have just said nicely, hey, I have a friend who referred me to someone who does this all the time. I'm going to go with them, but if I have a smaller event, we can work something out and I'll be your first client. That would have been perfect, but no. I think OP made the biggest mistake. Let me know your thoughts, guys. Do you agree with me or not? Drop them in the comment section down below. Thank you so much for tuning in. I hope you enjoyed this saga story. If you did, the best way, hands down, to support me is so simple. All you have to do is click the subscribe button, leave a comment down below, and smash that like button. Once again, thank you guys for joining in, and I'll see you at the next one. Peace.